So this is a Sikha in Chelik Zayin, Parshas Bechukoisai. So it's not this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is actually Bahar. And this is Parshas Bechukoisai. So the Rebbe brings a pasuk.
Which one?
Aleph. The Rebbe brings a pasuk in the brachas of Parshas Bechukoisai. It says Vishpati. It's page 188. Vishpati chayira min haaretz. The Eibishter says that when the Yidden behave nicely, so then when we follow the ways of Hashem, Hashem will give us all the brachas. And one of the brachas is Vishpati chayira min haaretz. Hashem will destroy all wild animals from the land. So the bring the Teres Kayanim, the Medrash on Vayikra, it's called the Teres Kayanim. He brings a plukta between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. What does it mean Hashem will destroy wild animals? Which is really referring to when Moshiach comes, because that's really when we're going to get the reward for all the mitzvahs. The ultimate reward is going to be when Moshiach comes. So then the Vishpati Chayiro Min Haaretz will be fulfilled fully. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Ma'aviro Min Ha'olam. Rabbi Yehuda says Hashem will take them away from the world. There'll be no more wild animals. Excuse me. Rabbi Shimon Imer, Rabbi Shimon says Mashpitzon Shelo Yizeiku. Yeah. Thank you. Rabbi Shimon says, Mashpitzan shelo yizeiku. Rabbi Shimon says that Hashem will destroy them. Vishpati means that they won't damage anymore. The lions, the bears, they'll still remain. They just won't hurt anyone. The Noch brings the Teres Kenim, Arayit Sudas, Rabbi Shimon, and the Teres Kenim brings Rabbi Shimon's proof to Rabbi Shimon. The Cheinu Eimer Mizmer Shili Mashavos. We say this is a song for Shabbos. Shabbos is referring to, it represents the times of Mashiach, and that's when Hashem will destroy the mazikim in ha'olam. Mashpis and shli yaziku, Hashem will cause that they shouldn't be mazik anymore. They shouldn't damage. That's one proof for Rab Shimon.
What's the proof?
What's the proof? That's going to the Rebbe asked that in the Sikha. What's the proof? It uses the same terminology, Shabbos. So you could learn Hashem will destroy the wild animals, that they won't. Right, but you could learn that it means they won't damage, or it means that he'll actually destroy them.
That's first that it's destroyed from the world. Second one,
that's what the Medrash wants to get to. The Medrash wants to get to.
So it's both. The Medrash both.
Yeah.
But,
right, but it really wants to get to is Reb Shimon. The second proof is a very obvious proof. The Gores is a very interesting part in Yeshaya. It's Yeshaya Perek Yud Aleph. Over there it says that Yeshaya. Over there it says how Hashem will send Mashiach and all the great milos of Mashiach. And then it says Vigor Ze'evim Keves over here. In the times of Mashiach, the wolf will be able to live together with the lamb. There'll be different animals together, and a young lad will be able to lead them. A child will play on the hole of a snake, poisonous snake. And it's very interesting. It continues. A child will play also by the hole of another very poisonous snake. And it's interesting in the Mefarshim how to teach it. Literally, a lot of Mefarshim teaches there's a hole that the snakes live in, and the child will put his hand in the hole and nothing will happen to him. Because when Mashiach will come, there will be snakes, there will be wild animals, but they just won't damage, they won't hurt. The Medrash in Teres Kenim teaches much more. He's not only going to put his hand in the hole. Over here it's referring to Mu'ura Sifaini, is referring to the eyeball of the snake. And it's very interesting that Radak explains that when a child looks in the dark, where the snake is usually living, in that hole, it's dark there. So all the child is able to see is the eyeball of the snake, because that's shiny. That looks like glass, it looks like something shiny. So he wants to get it. So he puts his hand to take that. Could you imagine what it feels, the snake feels when someone's grabbing his eyes? Doesn't feel too comfortable. And nevertheless, nothing's going to happen. To that extent is going to be when Mashiach comes, all the wild animals will just be living in peace. So this is a medrash that brings the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Are the wild animals actually going to be destroyed? Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Shimon says no, they're not going to be destroyed. They're just not going to be wild anymore. They're not going to damage anymore. But they're still going to be animals. They're still going to exist. It's interesting. The medrash over there continues. Rabbi Shimon actually brings, this is a rai from a pasuk that he brings from Yeshaya, clear pasuk, that there'll be a wolf, there'll be lions, there'll be snakes, all of them will still exist, they just won't hurt. In the medrash, Rabbi Shimon continues, Rabbi Shimon says, what's a greater praise for Hashem? That there's no wild animals? Or that there are animals which naturally damage and they're not damaging? He says, what's a greater thing? He says, surely the greater praise is that they're still here and they're not damaging. That's a greater praise. The Rebbe in the Sikha brings the Rogachover. The Rogachover going makes a lishitase. He says how Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon here in Teres Kenim are arguing something that's going to happen when Moshiach comes. Really are going with their same shita that they argue in halacha. Because here we use the pasuk v'ishpati, which the shayrish of the word is shin veis tov Shabbos, which means to rest, to stop, to rest, to stop. And the question is, we're stopping the wild animals, we're getting rid of them. In what manner? Are we getting rid of the animal itself or just the behavior of the animal? We find by Chometz a very similar thing. By Chometz it says also, Tashpisu se'er mibatechem. You should get rid of the Chometz from your house. It says Tashpisu. So over there, when we get rid of Chometz, is a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, and the Chachamim, which include Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says you burn the Chometz. And the Chachamim, including Rabbi Shimon, this Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Chachamim say, this is not it. The Chachamim say that all you have to do is break it up in small little pieces, and Zeir L'Ruach, or you put it into the Yam. So the Rogachover explains it's the same question. The question is, when the Torah says the word Shabbos, Shvisa, destroy something, does the Torah mean destroy the being itself, or does the Torah just mean to destroy its characteristics, he calls it Tzura or Etzem, the essence of it, or just its form, its more external characteristics. So over here, when the Torah says Vishpati Chayro, I'm going to get rid of these animals, Rabbi Yehuda says it's the thing itself, and Rabbi Shimon says no, it's just the characteristics. So too by Chometz, when the Torah says get rid of the Chometz, Rabbi Yehuda says you got to get rid of the thing itself. How do you do that? By burning it. Because it says even though when you burn something, the ashes remain, the ashes are considered like a new identity. It's not considered as a continuation of it. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says you burn it, that's the way you get rid of the thing itself. Rabbi Shimon says no. What's food meant for? Food is meant to eat, to benefit from it. As long as you make it in a way that we can't benefit from it anymore, you took away its meaning, that's already enough. That's already considered enough that you destroyed it. That's the Rogachover. The Rebbe goes on to explain how the machlekes goes l'shitase by Shabbos. The halachas are that the meleches machsheves. When you do a malacha, you have to have a certain amount of intent. And there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. How much intent do you have to have when you do a malacha? If you do a malacha, she'ein tzricha l'gufa, you're doing a malacha, but I don't need the malacha itself. I'm doing this only for a side reason. My motivation is not for this itself. You're putting out a candle, nothing to do with the candle itself, but because you want someone to be able to sleep, therefore you're putting out the candle. So over there is a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv, and Rabbi Shimon says you're potter. So the Rebbe explains it's a very similar machlokes, because Rabbi Yehuda says, the Torah says Shabbos you have to rest. You have to rest from not only from the full malacha with its whole, all its characteristics, but the essence of the malacha also. As long as you're doing it, even though you don't have the full intention, it's already considered a malacha. And Rabbi Shimon says no, it's enough that you just take off the tzura, the characteristics. As long as you don't have that full intention, that's already, the malacha already lost its full identity. That's already considered Shabbos, resting. This is all the lomdus of the Sikha. And the Rebbe goes into a great deal of lomdus, and the Rebbe goes into the starke kasha of the Sikha is, how would Rabbi Yehuda answer Rabbi Shimon's question? It's a mafurish pasuk in Yeshaya that there will be wild animals when Moshiach comes. And the Rebbe goes on to explain the famous, the Rebbe over here goes on to explain that there's actually going to be 2 stages. And it's very interesting. The Rebbe depends the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and another machlokes in the Gemara between Rav Katina and Abaya. The Gemara says the world is 6,000 years. The first 1,000, the second 1,000, we know how each 1,000 corresponds to something else. In general, it's 2,000s and 2,000s and 2,000s, but in detail, each 1,000 corresponds to something else. After the 6,000 years, the Gemara says Chad Charuv, then there'll be 1,000, which is the 7,000, which is Charuv. Charuv literally means the world will be destroyed. But the Chassidus explains it doesn't mean literally destroyed. It means it will be like an entire new world. The world will be on a whole new level. In the Gemara, there's a machlokes. Is it 1,000 that will be Charuv, or is it 2,000 that will be Charuv? So the Rebbe explains in this Sikha what's the difference between 1,000 and 2,000. Every 1,000 corresponds another change in the world. So the question boils down is, when we come to the Elef Hashvi, is it only going to be one change, or is it going to be two changes? The Rebbe says, what is that machlekes? That machlekes really is between Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda. Rav Shimon says there will be one change. That change is that anything negative will be transformed to positive. Rav Yehuda also agrees to that, because there's a beferish pasuk that's what's going to happen. But Rav Yehuda says that's going to be the first 1,000. The second 1,000 is going to be when it's actually not only transformed, but we get rid of it totally. So in this Sikha, the Rebbe explains a chiddush that Rav Yehuda agrees to Rav Shimon, but he says that's the first 1,000. The second 1,000 is going to be when it actually gets destroyed, and therefore the raya of Rav Shimon is not really a raya, because Rav Yehuda says that's in the first stage, but later on is when it's actually going to be fully destroyed. But the Rebbe brings down in the Sikha, it's on page 196, going to the avodah aspect of the Sikha, towards the end of the Sikha. The Rebbe says, this concept, the Rebbe says, between Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon, we paskin like Rav Shimon, the Rebbe says. Because we paskin this Chad Charuf, 1,000. Which means there's only going to be one stage of that they're going to remain, but we're just going to change the nature. Which this means in our Avodas Hashem, what is really greater, the Avodah is not to get rid of certain things in the world, but it's to transform them. And the Rebbe brings down a very similar concept that we find b'negea to Pesach. We said before, Pesach, the Torah says tashpisu, you have to get rid of the chametz. So it's on page 196, on the top of the page, the Rebbe says, we'll understand it, api what's known b'negea to chametz, that by Pesach we say chametz is osir. Comes Shavuos, we're soon coming to Shavuos, not only is chametz, we're allowed to eat chametz a whole year, but by Shavuos we know there's a special carbon that's brought, it's called the shtei halechem, 2 breads, that were made out of chametz. And even though we know you can't bring chametz on the mizbeach, so they didn't actually burn the chametz on the mizbeach, but it was considered a carbon that the kohanim all divided it and ate it. But it was a carbon made out of chametz. So the question is chametz something positive? Is chametz something negative? Comes Pesach, you got to get rid of even the tiniest part of chametz. Comes Shavuos, and we have to have chametz, and we bring it in the Beis Hamikdash as a carbon, and the kohanim eat it. That's the mitzvah, is chametz. So is chametz positive or negative? So it's explained, the Rebbe explains that it's known, the explanation, that chametz shows on the concept of Guyver, hisnasus, of Guyver. And we know from Guyver comes at all aspects of negativity. And therefore by Pesach, when a Yid is just leaving Mitzrayim, we have to actually run away from the chametz, and we can't have any chametz at all. But however, after the avoid of Sfiras HaOmer, when a Yid was already mevarer his 7 midas of the Nefesh Abamis, so then not only is chametz not a contradiction to Avodas Hashem, but on the contrary, we're able to make out of this chametz a mitzvah. So this is the concept that we could take the negativity. The goal is not to get rid of it, which is Rabbi Yehuda says the goal is to get rid of the wild animals. No more lions, no more tigers. The Rabbi Shimon says no, the goal is that they should remain, but they should be tamed. That we find by chametz. That the ultimate goal of the chametz is not that we get rid of the chametz. That's the first, in the beginning, we have no choice. We have to get rid of it because we don't know how to deal with it. We're not capable yet of transforming it. But once we become capable through Sfiras HaOmer, so then we're able to actually get rid of it. So what does this mean? The Rebbe brings down in the footnote 34, look in the Sichas Chelik Aleph. It's very interesting over there. The Rebbe speaks about it on page 129 and then page 266. The Rebbe speaks about what does this mean, that chametz is something so negative, we have to get rid of it, it's Guyver. What is the concept? The Rebbe explains that the ches is something that's closed off on 3 sides, it's opened up only to the bottom. Because really chametz and matzah are the same letters. They both have mem, they both have tzadik. The whole difference is between the ches and the hey. By matzah it's a hey, and by the chometz it's a ches. Ches means it's closed off from all three sides. It's just open up to the bottom. That means there's only one direction left for this person. Is down there. Matzah represents that even though he's facing down there, but there's a little hole on the top, which he can actually get out. He has a way of tshuva. The other difference between chometz and matzah is chometz is full of hot air. They have the same ingredients, and matzah has no hot air. And the Rebbe explains, Amir de Kazach, Chelik Aleph.
What do you mean by hot air? What is that?
It's blown up. Chametz is blown up. It's the same ingredients.
Yeah.
It's just by when you put in yeast or you let it rise, it's just rising. What's rising? Rising is just hot air. And matzah doesn't have that hot air. So what does that hot air represent that we say it's so negative? Chametz is so negative that it's the source for all evil. And not only is it the source for all evil, there's no way of tshuva. And the only way of tshuva is matzah. But the Rebbe explains a very interesting concept. The Rebbe says that when a person, the Rebbe says, when a person has this bittul, they call it in English, you could say this honesty. He's honest with himself. He doesn't have that hot ear covering it over. So then he's not trying to be right. Therefore, he makes a proper calculation, and he actually sees what is negative in his actions. He sees what he's doing wrong, and when he sees he's doing wrong, he does tshuva, because he sees the truth. However, if someone has that hot ear, he has all that, he can't see the truth. He has to cover it over and say he's right. So he's always going to find reasons to find that everything that he did is right. He's first of all going to try to say that it's right. And if he can't find that it's right, he'll find an excuse that it's not his fault. It wasn't my fault, it's because of this, because of that. In the end of the day, that's why the ches is covered from all sides. There's no way of tshuva. Because if a person does, if we don't realize that we did something wrong, or even if we did something wrong, we always have excuses why we could stay with it, so we're never going to get out of it. So the only way to get out of it is if the matzah. The matzah means we have to take out that hot air. It's the same ingredient. Just take off that hot air. We don't have to always be right. And then we're able to see the thing the way it is. And then there's a way out of tshuva. Because we're able to see that we did something wrong, and we're able to see that there's no excuses, and we have to change. That the Rebbe explains over here is the difference between chometz and matzah. The Rebbe brings down a very similar thing. Another thing is when it comes to doing something and you have to bend yourself a little bit. So also if someone has chometz, he'll find excuses why not to bend himself. Like it says, the Rebbe says in Tanya, all the things you're supposed to say for someone else, like someone else, if you see him doing an Aveda, so you're supposed to say, I'm not supposed to look negative at him because is probably, he could be having a greater yitzhara than I have. He could be in the market a whole day. All the limud zchus he's supposed to have on someone else, he's going to be busy doing it on himself. So he'll always find excuses for himself why in his situation he doesn't have to bend, why his situation is okay. That's a sikha that Rebbe explains the difference between chometz and matzah. And then the Rebbe continues to say that that's why by Pesach we have to get rid of the chometz. If we want to change, we have to get rid of the chometz. If we're full of this absorbed with ourselves that we have to be right, we're not going to be able to change. So what happens by Shavuos that we're able to transform this chometz into a mitzvah? What does this mean? So it means we're actually able to elevate our nefesh habahamis, and even elevate the things which are seemingly negative of the nefesh habahamis, like this concept of Guyver. We have the capability eventually. In the beginning we can't, but once we do tshuva and we get out of the negative, so then, and we work on ourselves, by Shavuos we have the capability, and it's a mitzvah actually to transform it. And that the Rebbe brings back in Chelik Zayin, the pasuk, Vayigba libay bedarkei Hashem. I'm sure a lot of people heard of it. Vayigba libay bedarkei Hashem. What is the pasuk referring to? It literally means his heart was high in the ways of Hashem. That means there's a concept of having a high heart, Guyver, in the ways of Hashem. So this is a pasuk very interesting about Yehoshaphat. His father was a king, and his father didn't do too well in the spiritual sense. And Yehoshaphat came, and he was a king for the Yidden, and he went and he got rid of all the idols, and he went to do positive for the Yidden. And it says Hashem helped him, and the people respected him. And then it says Hashem gave him a lot of richness. Vayigba libe b'darkei Hashem. He lifted his heart in the ways of Hashem. So the simple translation is Vayigba libe b'darkei Hashem. Rashi teaches that he lifted his heart to a higher level. Where did he lift his heart to? To the ways of Hashem. Means he elevated himself. Where did he elevate himself? To go in the ways of Hashem. And not only himself, but he got everyone else to go in the ways of Hashem. However, the Rebbe brings in Ha'ara 37, Divrei Hayom, this is a pasuk in Divrei Hayom, the Rebbe continues, Re'ei Reishis Chochma, we read it inside, Ha'ara 37, it's on the right side, on the bottom. Shar HaNavuah Perek Vav, the Reishis Chochma. I'm sorry, Shar HaNova. Reishis Chochma, the Shar of being a Onov. He goes to explain how he's supposed to be a Onov, beautiful explanations. And no matter how high a Yid is, he's always supposed to realize that all is the strength of Hashem. He says, Arin, he brings down interesting things. The Eivish gave the Koyanim, and even Arin, the Avodah of taking away the leftover ashes. It's all to implement in Arin the concept of Anivas. That's why Hashem gave Arin also some lower jobs, because he should have this concept of Anivas. But he writes over there, in Shar HaNova itself, he writes, Yiyeh Yekor Ruach. A person has to know that he's precious. V'gva nefesh, and very high soul. B'inyanei ha'olam haba, when it comes to spiritual concepts. And he explains that if a person is going to hold of himself very small, I'm such a onav, so how many mitzvahs do you do today? Very little. But you know what? For me, it was good. Such a small person did a few mitzvahs. Very good. So when it comes to spiritual things, if a person is going to hold of himself very small, he's not going to get too far. So he says when it comes to spiritual things, we have to know we're very great. And we have a lot of capabilities. And Hashem has big demands from us. So he says a person is supposed to demand from himself. Me? How did I not do this? What did I do today? And demand, and push yourself to do much more. And this comes, the Rebbe quotes the Lashon, from being Yekar Ruach. And he brings this pasuk, like it says, Vayig Balibe V'darkei Hashem. That means he learns the pasuk literally. Vayig Balibe, he felt very big, pertaining to Darkei Hashem. When it comes to serving Hashem, there he tells himself, I'm very big. When it comes to Gashmias, do I have to have, this guy got a new car, so maybe I also have to have a new car? There he says, well, who am I? Who says I deserve the fanciest car? I'm happy with what I have. But when it comes to Darkei Hashem, when it comes to serving the Eibush there he says, what do you mean? I'm a chosid. How you talking? So this is the avoid already of taking this negative trait of hot air and utilizing it, taking the nefesh habamis. It's not just the nefesh habamis, but it says Guyver is the source of all the ra of the nefesh habamis. That's why with Pesach we have to get rid of it totally. But then once we get out of our ra, we're able to take this and utilize it for kedusha, not grow through it. And then the Rebbe continues and says, look in Likutei Torah Bamidbar. Over there in Likutei Torah Bamidbar is a mimer of the Alter Rebbe, a very short mimer, about Har Sinai, where the Alter Rebbe brings that Har Sinai was the lowest mountain. And why was it the lowest mountain? He brings down, because for a Yid to be Zoiche, to get to Kedusha, to receive the Torah, we have to be humble. That's why the Torah was given on Har Sinai. Because like the Rebbe said in the Sikha, if a person is full of Guyver, he's never able to get close to Hashem. And then the Alter Rebbe continues and asks, so why is it a mountain? Famous question. If being low is the greatest thing, so why is it Har Sinai, a low mountain? It should be a valley. And there the Alter Rebbe is the one that says, because in order for a Yid to go in Kedusha, you have to have the mountain also. Because if a person is going to feel Taka so low, so he's going to say, who am I? What is my Avodah worth? So together with the anivas, to be honest with ourselves and be able to say, I don't have to be right. I could be making mistakes. I could get, I could be wrong. And realizing that we did wrong things, that comes from anivas, that comes from being humble. Otherwise, we'll never correct ourselves. But together with that, we also have to have the Guyver, as the Alter Rebbe says, the concept of Har, which will give us the push. Like in Reishis Chacham, it says the push to do more. The Alter Rebbe says the push to do anything. Otherwise, the Yid is not going to have the push to do. And the Alter Rebbe says that's the concept of V'yosvu anovim b'avaya simcha. The zayin of anivis and the concept of simcha. Anivis comes from the concept of bittul, and the simcha comes from this concept of vayig ba'libay. The person knows, I could do it. I have the koiches. That all gives you the push and drive to do it. What do you mean you have the koiches? Of course I have the koiches. That's the simcha, that's the concept of Comets. So this is what the Rebbe finishes off in this sikha. We're learning Goal of Moshiach. That's what this year is all about. The Rebbe finishes off what's understood from all of this in our Avodas Hashem. All the revelations that are going to be when Mashiach comes, Alter Rebbe Tanya says, is through our Avodah now. So that's why our Avodah has to be similar to whatever is going to be when Mashiach comes. Being that we said, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? The ultimate, we pass on the Reb Shimon, that's Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that the ultimate is not just to get rid of the negativity. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. The ultimate is get rid of the wild animals. The ultimate is to take these wild animals and transform them to be tamed animals, to Kedusha. So too the Rebbe says, let me read it inside, on page 197, 3 lines from the top. As the Ikir Ushlemis HaAveda Daf Zayin. So the Rebbe teaches what does it mean in our Avedas Hashem that we have to do to prepare for Mashiach, that the Ikir and the completion of our Aveda is not in Antläufen und Absondere sich vom Welt, not by running away or separating ourselves from the world, Olam Loshen Helam, which means concealment on Hashem, nor rather the opposite, to transform the world. And then the Rebbe puts in brackets, La'achri Achona, yes, we need a little preparation. But after the preparation, Machen die Welt Gufa, the goal is to make the world itself, a world that's filled with Klippa, for a dwelling place for Hashem. Und durch them, and by us transforming the world, through that will be Zeiche to the fulfillment of the promise, that the world will remain and will be transformed to positivity. So the Rebbe says, La'achri Achona, because that's what we have by Pesach also, that we have the Comets. True, in the beginning we can't transform the Comets, but after a little bit of preparation of 7 days getting rid of the Comets, and then Sfira So'im, 49 days, we're actually able to take the source of the whole Nefesh HaBamis, which is the concept of Guyver, and utilize that for Kedusha. You always see in the letters of the Rebbe, people had different yichidisim with the Rebbe, and people will tell the Rebbe, I'm a Bal Guyver, I have the problem of Guyver, what should I do? The Rebbe never would tell people, get rid of your Guyver. I don't know, I can't say never. But what I saw, the Rebbe didn't say get rid of the Guyver, because that's not the goal. The Rebbe would always say, so take that Guyver and utilize it for Kedusha. Vayigba libe b'darkei Hashem. Or people, even the Mishigasim that we have. Everyone has Baruch Hashem Mishigasim. The Rebbe would always say, take those Mishigasim. The goal is to utilize it. If Hashem gave it to us, is to utilize it for Kedusha.